listening to another DJ Hustle world premiere. World premiere.
Introduce to you Freeway Rick Ross, and he's going to give you more information about who he is, and I know a lot of people in the building know who he is, and he's going to give you more information about everything and talk to us on today about whatever he has on his heart.
Man, I feel like money. Man, I feel like money. It's attracted to me. They come around like money. They come around like money.
How y'all doing today? First of all, thank you for inviting me. It was a surprise when I got the call a couple of days ago to come out and speak. I was like, wow, speak to some women? I never spoke to a group of women. Most of the time, when I speak, it's to young teens, incarcerated, juvenile hall. I go all over the country speaking to them. Have spoken at a few colleges and a few churches, but most of the time, it's young men that I speak to because I felt that my message is more generated to them because I understand them. I know what they're going through because I was a young man and I know what I was going through. I know how I became incarcerated. But sitting here and listening to everything, you know, change. And one of the things that I know about myself that I know that when I was young, I've been brainwashed. See, when I say I was brainwashed, I believe that I was a thug. See, when I was on the streets, I lived it. Not like some of these guys, you know, they rap about it. You know, they take our stories and they rap. But I lived that life. I mean, I was dedicated to the streets. If it meant dying, it was just part of the game. Going to prison, that was just part of the game. Well, after I went to prison, and I started to try to figure out who I was, because never in my life did I ever try to figure out who I was or what my goal in life was. I was basically just living everybody else's dreams. So the more I thought about what this conference was about, I was saying, well, you know what, maybe you're the perfect person to come here and speak. Because I've been through it all. I know that the justice system is not blind to color. I know that the justice system is not just for everybody. I know that when you go to prison, that if you don't educate yourself, that you ain't gonna get educated. I just got out, I got out 2 years ago. And since I've been out, I've been wrestling right now with my PO. My PO is mad that I don't have a regular job. He wants me to go and work at McDonald's. He don't think that I should be coming and speaking to young kids or young people, or that I should be getting paid for doing that. He thinks that I am benefiting off my crime. But what I learned is that I can't let other people dictate how I'm going to live my life. Even if it means me going back to prison. But see, when I was in prison, let me tell you this here. Before I went to prison, I was illiterate. I'd never read a book, had never wrote a word on a piece of paper. I mean, school was something that I shined away from. We considered being smart, being soft. If the big homie saw you with a book, they laughed at you and called you a sissy. But when I went to prison, I was sitting in the visiting room with my attorney. And even though I paid him a lot of money to fight my case, he wasn't fighting my case the way I felt he should be. He wasn't putting the passion in it that I put in when I was in the streets. Mm-hmm. See, because when you're in the streets, you're putting everything on the line. Your life, your freedom, your family's life. You know, when I sat in my cell and I said, man, you know what, Rick? he was passing down the street one day, and I saw my kids riding their bikes down the street, and I said, you know what, if somebody do something to one of my kids, I'm going to hunt them down to the end of the world. But when I was sitting in that cell, and I said, well, you was the one that was putting their lives in jeopardy with the line of work that you was doing. So I know that I had put everything on the line, that I was willing to put everything on the line. All the people that I loved, everything that was dear to me, I was willing to put it on the line. And I saw that my lawyer wasn't putting that kind of effort into fighting my case. And he made a statement to me one day in the visiting room. We were sitting there and we was talking. He said, Rick, he said, anytime somebody else wants for you something more than you wanted for yourself, you in trouble. Well, I went back to my cell that day and I pondered that thought. It just went over and over all day. I didn't go watch TV that day. I didn't want to play no chess. I didn't want to do nothing. I just laid in my bed and I thought about what he was saying. And I was getting ready to get a life sentence. Everybody knew, it was all in the newspaper, that I was going to get a life sentence. When I went back to court, the judge was going to give me, it was mandatory life. The judge could not give me life even if she wanted to. She had to. So I went back to my cell and I was pondering what he was thinking, what he had told me. And then what came to me is that I got to take it up on myself. Now here I was, illiterate, couldn't read, couldn't write, and my lawyer just told me that I need to become a lawyer. That's what he told me in so many words, that I need to become a lawyer, that I need to learn how to fight my own case. If I wanted that kind of passion to be into my case, then I needed to put it in there. And I took him up on that. I told my cellie, he started teaching me how to read. I had to go all the way back over my ABCs. I learned how to read, and luckily I did, because I found an issue. I'm in the law library reading one day. I'm reading law books 8, 9, 10 hours a day sometimes. And then I ran across this sentence. And it was what I've been looking for, what I needed to reverse my case, to allow me to be standing here on the stage today. I found it myself. When I brought it to my lawyer's attention, he said, no, you're wrong. I brought it to the judge's attention. She said I was wrong. Went to the 9th Circuit Court of Appeal, and they reversed it. So what I do now is I take that same energy, that same tenacity, that same determination, and I put that into everything that I'm doing. I don't care what it is, this is the way I'm going to do it. Well, after I got my case reversed, I still had 9 years because the judge gave me 20 years. After she took the life off, I still had to do 20 years. I had 9 more years to do when I got my reversal. So what came to me is, Rick, you never had a job. What are you going to do when you get home? You going to sell drugs again? You going to go back out on the street after you know? See, it's one thing if you do something when you don't know, and you do it out of ignorance. But it's another one when you do it and you absolutely know what you're doing, you know that it's wrong, or you know that it's right. It's a difference. Well, see, I knew what drugs did. I knew that when I sold drugs to people, that sometimes their kids may not have something to eat. Just so that me and my friends could ride around with nice cars and wear nice clothes and go to the fancy restaurants. See, I knew that. And I made a commitment to myself, not to nobody else but to myself, that I wasn't going to participate in that life again. See, I was through with that. Because one thing that I never wanted to be was somebody that took advantage of others. So when I started selling drugs, to give you a little history, cocaine was the in thing. It was the thing that everybody was doing in Hollywood. And I fell into that trap. See, I wanted to be like Richard Pryor, Hollywood Henderson, and all the guys that I looked up to. Other guys in my neighborhood that was in that lifestyle that I thought was the guys who more yourself after. But after I had been in that life, and I knew that wasn't the life that I really wanted. See, I wanted the money. And then I read this book one time, and it really opened my eyes. The book was called The Richest Man in Babylon. And when I read this book, the book talked about a guy who wanted to sell diamonds, and he went to a bricklayer and asked the bricklayer to teach him how to sell diamonds. So when I read this story reflected back on my own life of how I went to a drug dealer and asked him to teach me how to make money. Well, after going through all these different scenarios and debating with myself and trying to figure out which way that I should go, I started to come up with some strategies for myself. I started to map out a plan, something that I had never really did before. Because when I was out on the streets, I never thought I would get past 24, 25 years old. It didn't matter. I never had a plan for 5 years or 10 years. But after I learned that I was supposed to be planning, that I could make plans, and that who I really was, because I never knew who I really was. I thought I was that thug, that gangster, the dope dealer, the dummy, the idiot. But after I learned how to read, so many doors opened for me. And the books that I started reading, they didn't have them in prison. No, they didn't have them in prison. It wasn't something that the jailhouse provided for us. See, the first book that I got, there was a guy who brought it to my cell one day, and he introduced it to me.